Hey, what's happening? Well, I'm getting along all right.
All right, man.
just
First
returned
of all, I
from
want to
a tour.
know, well, I'm just thankful you came out, man, and just from reading your story, brother, it's been ridiculous, man. Just reading your life and what you've gone through. But the first thing I want to ask you is, what do you like to be called, man?
Rick.
Rick.
Yeah.
Rick.
So my friends call me Rick.
Growing up, when you were younger, like a little boy, what your mama call you?
Well, my mama called me Ricky.
Ricky. Okay. So I'm gonna call you Rick.
All right.
I read your book, and I ain't talking crazy to you, man. Well, okay, so I have to tell you, man, I'm 38. I have to explain my ignorance, man. When I first heard about you, the first thing I thought about was the Rick Ross that I'm familiar with, the rapper.
The one that Universal has dominated my name. That's basically what happened is they took my name and then they started throwing all this advertisement money on it with this guy's face and his image to pollute the people's mind.
Mm. When did you find out about that?
About him?
Yeah.
That he had took my name?
Yeah.
Man, I was laying in my cell one day and you know, I had a book club when I was in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a bunch of young guys that I was teaching business to. And one of my young guys come running in my cell with a magazine in his hand. And he was like, Rick, this dude took your name. And I was like, huh? And then he showed me the picture and it was an article and I started reading the article and the guy was talking about how he adopted my name. That's when I first heard about it. And I was like, wow. You know, he didn't even contact me, you know, and ask me, was it cool?
So when the article talked about adopting your name, what does that mean? He adopted your name.
Well, I had a life sentence. So he felt that I was never getting out. I was like dead. You know, I didn't exist anymore. So he figured that nobody really knew who I was, what I looked like anyway. So he could become me and pick up the love that the streets had for me.
Mm.
And that's what he did.
And he kind of did it. I mean,
No, he didn't kind of do it. He did it. I have to fight now to say that people ask me for ID.
Mm. Wow.
If I say, oh, I'm Rick Ross, and they be like, huh? You got some ID? You ain't never. Even yesterday at the stores when I was at a barbershop yesterday and a couple really women. You know, women are really like naive to what's really going on. Most of the dudes from the street now, you know, they done got hip to it and they know what's going on. But for a minute, you know, I had an elusive mentality when I sold drugs, meaning that I didn't want to be seen, I didn't want to be known, but my reputation grew so big that on the underground, everybody talked about, you know, this cat from L.A. named Rick Ross, who made all this money.
Mm.
And it just was an underground thing, but nobody knew what he looked like because, you know, it was before the cameras, everybody had cameras on their phone, it was before YouTube, and thank God. So nobody really knew what I looked like. So it was easy for him to take that and put an image with it.
Mm. So you doing time, paying the penalty for some things you went through in your life. You get out, and then you facing kind of a different type of penalty, where someone has kind of arrested your identity.
Yeah.
What is that? I mean, you went through all that. What do you think is harder, man? Someone taking your name, or some of the adversity you went through growing up and going to prison? Like, when you look at these,
But you know what? Taking a name is, I mean, it's bad, but it's not. It's nowhere near as bad as having a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole, and you thinking that you may never see the streets again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you may never be able to be intimate with a woman again in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you may never get to hold your grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the worst thing that you can do to a person, is to put them in prison. Well, not the worst thing, you know, because there are people in worse shape than that. There's people who are on death row.
Yeah.
You know, like right now, I got a friend that I've been recently acquainted with, and he was on death row, and he was accused of committing a crime that he didn't commit.
Mm-hmm.
So there are worse things than having a life sentence. But, you know, having a life sentence without the possibility of parole is tough. You know, it beats you down. You know, it makes your hair turn gray, make your hair fall out, and do things to you that most people wouldn't even know how to deal with. I mean, some guys go crazy behind it.
Mm.
You know, I've seen guys who are sane literally go crazy, lose it, have to take pills every day to calm them down. Matter of fact, some of them get on what they call Thorazine. I don't know if you ever heard of Thorazine, but it's a medicine that they give them, and it makes them shake and kick and all kind of stuff. But it's tough. So, you know, having him take my name, it's a big deal, you know, but not the biggest deal is some of the other things I've been through in my life, you know.
Did you kind of expect, you know, once you saw this this man become successful using your name, did you kind of expect once you got out maybe to receive some type of...
I thought he should have did it even when I was in prison, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I mean, when I spoke to him, my goal was to make a bond with him and to help him with his career, because he saw something in me that he wanted, but he only looked at the name. He didn't look at what it took to build the name.
Yeah.
See, once you know the building aspect, then building the name is easy. You know, and he only looked at the blocks that was already stacked and not wanting to find out, well, how did he stack these blocks? And what I was trying to teach him is how to stack blocks, you know, how to make it grow. And he wasn't willing to sit down and get that teaching.
So, man, I almost hear you kind of was looking forward to connecting with this brother, talking to him, and it sounds like that's the type of heart you have.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I know what I did in the drug business. Let me tell you, when I was in the drug business, I was really low key. I mean, you see me now, I don't want no gold, I don't want no Air Jordans, I didn't want no Air Force Ones, you know, I didn't care about that stuff. I didn't need no Ferraris. You know, people gave me Ferraris, they gave me Mercedes Benzes. You know, I didn't take my money and buy that stuff. So I was really low key with the way I did it, because I saw that when you start to stand out, and I wanted to stay in the hood, I didn't want to go to Beverly Hills and be like an outcast, because if I left the neighborhood and went to Beverly Hills, I may not be able to come back in because they may not accept me. But if I stayed there, I was one of them all the way. So I wanted to stay in the community. So in order for me to stay in the community, I couldn't outshine them. If I'm in the community and I'm outshining everybody else is not eating, but here I am throwing food away and stepping on it, you know, like some of these guys do, you know, take a Maybach and cut it up in front of everybody, and, you know, and everybody else out here ain't even got nothing to eat, but you can cut up a $500,000 car and laugh about it. I couldn't do that. It's not how I did it. You know, when I pull up in the gas station, people see me in the gas station, it might be 50 cars pull up. Fill them all up. You know what I'm saying? People come up to me every day, oh, my rent ain't paid. Here, pay your rent. Oh, my son went to jail. He ain't got a lawyer. Here's something on his lawyer. Send him a couple dollars on his books. That was my mentality. And that's why my community bragged about me.
Wow.
And what I found out is that even though a lot of people didn't know me, my circle was small, but what wound up happening is I made these guys rich
Mm.
and powerful. So for a rich and powerful guy, he only got to mention your name one time.
Mm.
He don't have to be going around advertising your name, promoting your name. If he mentioned it one time, because he's so powerful that when he mentioned it to his guys, see, he knows not to go out, because I told him, don't go out mentioning my name.
Mm.
But he might mention it just one time to his guy. Oh, I just come from seeing Rick.
That's all I gotta say.
That's all he had to say. Now his guy is going to take it, and he may mention it to all of his guys. Oh man, Tommy just come from seeing Rick. We on. Then another guy might do the same thing. Now you got 30 or 40 of these dudes who did the same thing. Now your name just went like this here throughout the community.
So, as a marriage and family therapist, I know this. When a person is loving, they receive love back.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if they go about it the wrong way. So that means that I'm gonna say your name, Rick. I don't know where I'm gonna be when I'm like, hey, I was talking to Rick, the original, the legend. The other thing, man, from reading your book that stood out to me was it seemed like you just had an overwhelming passion, really, man. And I could be wrong, I'm asking you, to please your mother, man, to make her happy.
I mean, everybody does. You know, nobody wants to see their mom struggle forever. You know, if you're growing up and your mom is struggling and trying to make it, then you want to make it easier for them. I mean, that's our job as kids, is to get ourselves in a position to where one day we can help our families and people who helped us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's human nature. You help the people who help you. And my mom, you know, has been there for me. You know, my father wasn't there for me. You know, rest in peace. But he wasn't there. So my mom was the person that I knew had my back. You know, I knew she was going to be there no matter what I did.
One point I was reading, it talked about when you got kicked out of school. And when I was reading, first of all, this book is good, man. It was like 3 in the morning, I'm reading, what's next, keep going. And it was talking about how when you had the boy in a chokehold, you know, and I was scared. I was like, oh, he probably killed him. Is that when he went to jail? You know, and it talked about you just kind of blacked out. But amongst all of that, to me, I think you said something to the extent of that was the day, you know, you'll never forget how disappointed your mother was. And I could just see the toll it would take on you when she was disappointed.
Yeah. I knew that she wanted me to stay in private school. I mean, my mom wanted me to be smart in books. You know, even though she didn't know what she was supposed to be doing to make me smart, but she wanted it. You know, she was counting on other people to do it for her. You know, like getting me a tutor. Researching. You know, like took me to a psychiatrist, like you said. You know, she listened to the school and they told her to take me to a psychiatrist. They did that. So I know how bad she wanted me to do good in school, because they felt that school was the way to the next level. You know, my mom didn't get to go to school like she was supposed to. You know, she had to go and pick cotton when she was a little girl. So they would be taken out of school days at a time to go and pick cotton, because her father was a sharecropper. So they went and picked cotton.
So then there's this other scene where I think your brother, is it David? David comes home, and I'm hearing, you know, I couldn't help. This is my favorite chapter because, you know, my whole passion, man, is to help families, you know, and particularly, too, at times African-American families love each other, and that's the foundation.
Right.
So certain things stand out to me, right? So when I'm listening to your story, I hear a young man that has a lot of love in his heart. And there was one point you talk about your brother came home, and a part of you was excited because it was like, I'm not alone.
Oh yeah, well, it was me and my brother and my mom, just us, you know, before we moved to California. And then when we left Texas, I left my brother. My mom left my brother with my father. because he was already in school, and now I understand why she did it, because I'm older, and when I was reading a book, writing my book, I went back over that time, and I understand why now, because we were sleeping on one of my auntie's couches. So for three of us to be sleeping on the couch would have been even worse, you know. And I was a little fella, you know, I wasn't but like 3 years old, 4 years old, but my brother was probably like 11 or 12 at the time. So we left him there in Texas, and it hurt me.
And I'll tell you, a lot of the work I do is around abandonment. I really feel our country really doesn't understand abandonment and what it does to us, and all the different ways we're abandoned. One of the things I thought was powerful, you loved your mother, she loved you, but you talked about how you were trying to explain to her the issues you were having with school. It was kind of like she just didn't quite get what you were saying, which I know that's a form of abandonment. She's just being a loving mother.
Right.
But it's kind of like, I don't care what you're saying, learn how to do this and learn how to do that. Talk to us, man. There's a lot of kids listening, right? They respect you. They know who you are. And there's many of them that have that pain where they're in school and sometimes they're acting out because they're struggling academically. Talk to me, man, about that, how hard that was at times.
Well, you know, it's really tough when nobody understands what you're going through, and it was hard for me to explain to my mom what I was going through, because I didn't really understand it either.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't understand that my problem was that they didn't teach me how to sound out my words, and that the language that we speak is not the same language that everybody else speaks.
Right.
We don't pronounce our words the same way. So when they're trying to teach me how to read, I just wasn't getting it. You know, it took my cellie, when I'm in prison, man, to sit me down and show me, hey, Rick, these words, you got to sound them out.
Wow.
You know, A has a different sound than A. You know, nobody had ever did that for me. And my mom, she didn't understand that that was what I needed.
So you were immediately kind of stereotyped as learning disability, and here you were sitting there, a genius, who's now writing books. Look at God, man.
Who's been featured in Esquire magazine, 80th anniversary, as the key story.
The boy who can't read, the boy who's struggling academically, writing books, being featured in magazines. How would your mom feel about this?
Oh, well, my mom, she loves what I'm doing. She loves to come out to my speeches. She wants me to be a preacher.
Man, look, okay, I didn't want to say this, but I'll tell you this. A part of what I do is spiritual direction. And so on this couch, I've had a lot of ministers and pastors. And something stands out to me about them all the time. And these are real men of God that love their community. It's their heart. It's really big, right? And so it is, I feel your mama. Because your heart is huge, man.
Well, you know, I look at it though, my people don't need more ministers.
Say more.
We have ministers everywhere, but we still having these problems. What I did when I was in prison, you know, I studied. You know, I studied preachers. I studied Farrakhan. And what I came up that our people need is somebody to teach them economics. Because a hungry person, he don't want to know how to read no book. The only thing he want to know is how can he get some food in his stomach. And so my goal now is to feed my people, and not, you know, like one of my guys said, he say, don't feed them, teach them how to fish. So I'm not going to feed them, I'm going to teach them how to fish.
Now, I got to tell you something. Jesus, really everything you're saying is right in the Bible. Jesus literally said, when they were looking for him as a little boy, he said, I'm about my Father's business. B-U-S-I-N-E-S-S, right? Business.
Yeah.
He was a businessman. Look at the Jewish community. Jesus was a Jew. Are they not about business and building power?
That's all they're about.
Okay, so we miss that in the text, but typically there's people that God gives gifts to. And when I read your story, your gift was screaming out. All you could do is count for no reason. Just could do it. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I just picked it up. I mean, and not just count. I've been a business guy. I mean, I've been doing business since I was 7, 8 years old. You know, I had car washes when I was a kid. Before junior high school, I was doing car washes with my friends. I used to hustle aluminum cans. I used to go to people's house, collect bottles. I used to collect newspapers. So I've been entrepreneurish, but I just didn't know how to channel that energy into something to the next level.
One of the things that stood out, okay, you're talking about, and man, you said some deep stuff, man. I'm having a problem. I'm trying not to hop to each one of them. You're standing and a gun gets pointed at your head. You, to me, make an excellent decision about kind of staying away from the game. But then you said, out of all the stuff, you said, you know, I just realized I shouldn't shake a little bit when a gun is pointed at me. I'm trying not to tremble. I'm trying not to tremble. I don't want to tremble the next time. And I'm like, man, this is a young guy talking about, I'm going to work on when guns are pointed at me, not trembling.
That's the mentality, though, in the black community.
Say more.
Our kids are used to that. We feel like it's normal to have guns in our surrounding pointed at us, pointing them at somebody. You know, and some kids even talk about squeezing the trigger. You know, I mean, we was in the studio last night and a young kid was rapping, and his rapping was really anger. And he was talking about squeezing the trigger viciously. And he was rapping this rap to nobody in particular, but probably to everybody.
His anger, rage, not being heard, going through what he's going through, and then that being the platform.
Being trapped. I mean, our kids are trapped right now. And that's where I was. I was trapped. You know, I was trapped in that environment.
One of the things I see every day, man, that is kids really just wanting love, feel safe, and not being left alone. And you talked about being a little black boy at a Catholic school. You weren't Catholic, so you kind of went through this little shame period every day. What would they do to you?
Well, everybody else did what they call communion. And when they did communion, I sat on the bench by myself.
Mm.
And they would walk up and I never knew what it was, but to a kid, it becomes a big deal. If everybody else is doing it, then I desperately wanted to do it. To the point where I was willing to become Catholic.
Mm.
You know, I was telling my mom that I wanted to get baptized, you know, so that I could start, when the other kids go up to communion, and get their little piece that they put in their mouth and give them their little drink.
Because you're Baptist. Well, you grew up.
My mom was Baptist.
And that's a no-no. You can't cross over. She wasn't trying to really hear that, was she?
Well, I don't know. She never really said
Yeah, her name.
what the issue was, but I know that I never got baptized. I never took communion with the Catholics, and eventually I got kicked out of that school. You know, which after I got past the part of getting kicked out, I was glad because now I was with my other cousins and the rest of my family. So you know, I was much happier there anyway.
Well, then you transition, and I want to juxtapose that with, then you at this piece where now you walking in, and you talk about being real scared, and you walk with no fear. You had this.
But that was at Bret Hart.
Yeah, you got. I'm watching this mentality of no fear, Bill, and then your cousin said something to you. I think it was all Crips looking at you, and you know, it stuck out to me. It was like, all of a sudden now, you the special kid, and you feel safe because you with them, and now you go from being pushed out to being embraced and feeling safe. What was that like? But it was by the Crips, you know. It's like gained you feeling safe and feeling a sense of family. What was that like? That difference?
Well, when I first was walking down that street, you petrified. You know, you seeing all these guys, older guys too. And you know, back then everybody was like lifting weights. So, you know, guys were like Tookie. You remember how big Tookie was? Well, these were his underlings. And their goal was to be like Tookie. Be big and buff like Tookie. I mean, I was trying to get buff. I mean, all of us used to lift weights as young kids, 12 and 11, 12 years old, because that's what we wanted to be like. So to be walking in that path and then you're like, wow, am I going to get beat up right now? And these guys going to jump on me? And then to see somebody that you know to embrace you was like, oh, I'm safe now. I ain't got to worry about that no more. That's no longer my fear, because one of my guys have been accepted and he accepted me into the group. So it felt wonderful to be accepted and to be safe. I mean, we all want to be safe.
That's right.
I mean, that's just human nature.
Man, what's the message you would send to these, what's the message you would send, I'm watching China with, what is the message you would send to these young boys out here after you've lived this life? Man, you kind of remind me, honestly, when I read the story of Solomon, right? Solomon had everything. He went through this process of, he gets the cars, he gets the money, he gets the women, he got the house. His name is known across the land, and he comes to this conclusion about what true wealth is. Man, after going through all this, what is it? What is wealth now to you after going through this process?
Well, you know, what I figured out, the most valuable thing that we have is our minds. I mean, once you can get your mind to think properly, there's nothing that you can't accomplish. You can go from being an illiterate person in prison with a life sentence to being good enough in the law to where you can outdo people who went to the top universities in this country. You know, my lawyer went to Harvard, my prosecutor went to Yale, and I found an issue that both of them disagreed with. And that's how I got myself out of prison. So what I found out is the key to all our problems is locked inside of here. You know, our kingdom. And you know, the Bible says, protect your kingdom. And Farrakhan pointed that out to me, that this is our kingdom. And we have to protect that, and that's what it takes to set us free.
Kingdom of God is an attitude in your mind. When did you realize you was a genius, man? How long did it take you to realize I'm actually brilliant? Like,
I don't know. I mean, and I don't think I'm no smarter. You know, like I told the kids at juvenile hall yesterday, I ain't no smarter than they is, to be honest. They say the brightest of us only use what?
10%.
10%. 15 is, they say, guys send rocket ships to outer space that use 10% of their brain. I mean, 15%, I think they said. So none of us have really experienced our potential, because a lot of times we're locked on different wavelengths. You know, I told these kids, what was I at? I told these kids, I said, I was in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. I spoke there to some juveniles, and I said, what happens is sometimes we put out radio on 2 stations at the same time. And I said, when that happens, most of the time you can't understand what neither one of them saying. And that's what happens to us in life. You know, we're on too many different wavelengths. And a lot of times we're on radio stations that other people control.
Wow. Distraction. Man, I thank you for coming to visit me, man. I love you, brother. Anytime I meet a man that has gone with you, have gone through and comes up with the conclusions of understanding who you are and bringing that message out, man, it just helps me to understand who I am too. So I thank you, and I look for greater things to come, because your story says, whatever you put your mind to, man, it's a wrap, man.
Can you believe I was speaking at a junior college and a girl came up to me and she said, Rick, you put yourself in prison. And I told her, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Because I thought my way into prison. See, when I was selling drugs, it was no longer about the money. It was about, can I go to prison?
Mm-hmm.
You get it?
Yeah.
Because I had more money than I ever thought I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So the only reason I kept selling drugs so I could go to prison. She pointed that out to me, and I told her she was absolutely correct.
That is passing down wisdom and insight to the next generation. Well, I told you before, all it takes is one mention of your name, brother. So I'm gonna be telling people. Talking to Ricky Ross. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Hey, what's happening? Well, I'm getting along all right. I just returned from a tour.